Everyone, welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This is where tradition meets truth and nothing is off limits. This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines are world-renowned royal authors, Robert Jobson and Duncan Larcombe. Thank you so much for being here. Robert, where are you? You were just with the king.
I was just with the king and the queen and Princess Royal and the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester and Myling Class and Fern Britain. My God, how exciting. I'm in my car trying to get to a place where I can record this properly, but sadly didn't make it because London traffic is so bad.
It's so bad. It's so traumatic. I mean, really, I
So
think I
thank
ate.
you, Sakir. What's his name? Not Sakir Starmer, Sakan or whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely dreadful.
That is so funny. I just saw, this is for you too, Duncan. I just saw that the king and queen spent Valentine's Day at Windsor Castle. I guess this question is for either one of you. Is that significant? Is that a big deal? I mean, I think that the rumor is that the king doesn't really love Windsor Castle in the same way that Queen Elizabeth did.
Yeah, I mean, for the Queen, Windsor Castle was her home. Buckingham Palace was her office. And we, it's all up in the air. We still don't really know. We're a few years into his reign, and the king hasn't moved into his mum's old pad, if you like. So, yeah, it's interesting that they spent the weekend there or Valentine's Day there. Yeah,
They spent
definitely.
a bit more time there than they were, I think, Dan, because I mean, he doesn't really spend time at Buckingham Palace. He doesn't really move in there. Clarence House is where he stays. But actually, he's taken over quite a bit of Windsor Castle. He's moved into his father's old rooms. And I suppose he spent Valentine's there being a true romantic because he didn't want to go out with his wife. Maybe that's what the reason was.
Well,
Robert,
they did
Robert,
say that
you're
they
still
were.
cross.
They did say that they went back there because they were married in the vicinity, which I thought was sort
Oh,
of
truly
sweet.
romantic.
Down at
That
Oak
is. So hopefully they spent their time on their knees in St George's Chapel, paying penance.
All right, well, let's stay on Queen Camilla. And this, I think, is sort of a fun story. Out of Vanity Fair, Queen Camilla, for one, still loves James Corden. And so on Tuesday, Queen Camilla hosted some of Britain's biggest stars at Buckingham Palace. And it was names that I was familiar with, like Andrew Garfield and Kate Blanchett and some other familiar faces. But I think all of us were almost startled by the sight of Queen Camilla with James Corden, who's infamously very close to Prince Harry. It was after Oprah. I think one of the first interviews Prince Harry did in America was with James Corden, where he peed in a stranger's bathroom in Beverly Hills or something.
But I think he actually even went out before the Oprah interview went out, and yeah, it was. I think they've since fallen out. Or someone said they had it. We don't look. The reality is James Corden's over here now, so he's just had a huge success with Gavin and Stacey's last show, and yeah, and I suppose he's based over here now. He's not really in America, so he doesn't need to sort of suck up to Harry. He's probably sucking up to Camilla.
He's got to kiss the ring. Duncan, what do you know about Harry and James's relationship? Because they were kind of naughty together. We know that James attended his wedding. I almost wonder now, there in the shot, there was a shot of Meghan during Harry's interview with James. I think he did at least two since he's moved to the States before James moved. But I wonder how much Meghan would encourage a relationship like that, having known that these two guys got in a lot of trouble together when he was single.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking me that, Kinsey. Yeah, that's a nice little hand grenade. Yeah, Meghan the monster. Would she? Look, I mean, like Robert says, I mean, James Corden was living in LA when they filmed those. He doesn't live there anymore. He's finished not finished with America, but his success is based back in the UK now. So who's going to turn down an invite to Buckingham Palace? Not James Corden, by the sounds of it, but Robert Jobson maybe.
No, I don't.
I know if they provided me with a car that would get me there and get me back,
You need a helicopter.
I'd be out with a chauffeur. I'd be delighted. I'd even skydive from a helicopter. But look, the Buckingham Palace receptions now are really, I mean, unless you're in the initial lineup, it's just a bun fight. I mean, this was the one I was just at for humanitarian causes. I mean, there was hundreds of people in there. So if you're thinking it was going to be, like some scones and a cup of tea and a fireside chat with the king, it's more like a garden party indoors.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I know that
I
you're
can send you some pictures of it. I tell you, it's you would not believe how many people are in there. Never used to be like that with the Queen. There would be far more less people, but I suppose they're getting as many in as possible. And the King, who's supposed to be, who's still got on chemotherapy,
mm,
absolutely mobbed by these people. I mean, it would have been, you would not believe the way that it was. I mean, he's like, you see a disappearing figure in a crowd. That's what it's like,
he's a
literally
beetle.
inside the palace. Yeah.
He's a beetle. No, I love hearing that. That does sound like a blast. I know that you probably preferred like the more intimate settings, but to
Well,
me, I
as a
think
journalist, you can then actually interview the people properly
yeah.
and have a conversation and find out what the royals said to the other. All you're getting now is Buckingham Palace press secretaries, as Duncan well knows, before you even ask a question, they're tapping on the shoulder, so asking you to move behind the photographers, which is about as much use as a pig in a pope.
Oh my gosh. Well, I did think it was fun watching this Buckingham Palace event with the Queen, that
Hmm.
we saw the Windsor's Hugh Skinner there, who played a very silly Prince William on that
Yeah.
parody program. We also know that the King still engages with, I'm spacing on his name, but the handsome man that played him in The Crown, because
Yeah.
that man, how am I spacing on his name? But
Timothy
he
West. Is it Timothy West? No,
no,
no, not West. West. No, it wasn't. I know
Dominic,
the man you
Dominic,
mean.
Dominic West.
Dominic
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 West. There you
West.
go.
Yes.
Dominic
Yeah. And
West.
so
Yeah.
Dominic West continues to work with the King's Foundation,
Good
the
actor, though,
King's
isn't he? He's a very good actor.
amazing, amazing. He continues to work with the King's Trust. He offered to leave when he was offered the role of the Crown, and the King's Trust, their team said, absolutely not. We understand that you're an actor and that, this is your job. And
Yeah.
then to see the Windsor's Hugh Skinner there engaging with the Queen, yeah, I would be under the assumption that you would want to tiptoe around insulting this, historic, institution that is so well respected around the world. But it's nice that they understand and appreciate the arts to the point that they don't take those things so personally.
Yeah, I mean they're actors and they're celebrities, and nothing brings more credence to a celebrity than being photographed with a royal. That's the way it works in this country. So I think they're, they might have appeared in the Windsors, they might have appeared with James Corden interviewing a very angry, bitter prince, but ultimately their careers are more important, I suppose, than how it looks from the outside.
I didn't realise it called it an interview, Prince William.
Did I say Prince William? Sorry,
No,
Oh, no, no,
he's
no.
he's being naughty. He's being naughty. Um, let's transition to another angry prince, if we could.
The
Prince
unpopular.
Andrew celebrating his 65th birthday this week.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
Happy birthday. And the story is that he's set to earn millions with this agreement with a company that they put together events and conferences where investors work with entrepreneurs and creatives and inventors, very similar to pitch at the palace. And the reason why Prince Andrew, I guess, is of value to them is because he has that little black book of people he's met and worked with in the past. And the tone is very much that this is something that is negative, or this is something that is inappropriate. I don't know if I am at all offended by the
No.
idea of this. This is a solution to a problem. This is a man that's broke and is very limited skill-wise as to how he can continue to maintain his lifestyle. If all he's doing is making introductions, Robert, is that
No.
yeah.
I don't know. I find it really odd that people want their cake and eat it as well. I know it's easy to kick Prince Andrew, but at the end of the day, he's no longer a royal effectively because of what's happened. We just don't point going all over that again. But you can't then expect him to do nothing. he's not broke. I mean, he's been left multi-millions by the Queen and other things. He's got money, but you can't then stop him earning money as well. You know, if he's going to do these introductions and a company's prepared to make him, you know, we read that it's millions. It might not be millions, but it'll make him money. You can't then stop him doing that as well. You know, he's not been found guilty of anything. Therefore, he's been stripped of his royal links. He's not being paid or getting anything from the royals as such. Uh, he's got to pay for Royal Lodge because the king doesn't want to anymore. Look, at the end of the day, he's got to earn some money. They can't have it both ways. I think it's really unfair to criticise him. As long as he's doing something as long as it's not illegal, then that's fine as far as I can say. You know, that's my opinion of it anyway.
Duncan, it's alleged in one of these articles, I believe it's by the Standard, that this arrangement was approved by Buckingham Palace, and weeks later, after that approval, is when the king allegedly cut off all funding to the Duke. Is that a process that might actually happen? Have you seen something like that happen in the past, or does that sound copacetic to you, where Prince Andrew would approach somebody and say, "Hey, is this okay?" And then the palace or the king's team says, "Actually, that's great because we don't want to pay for you anymore." Perfect, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing stinks of rotten eggs, to be honest. Prince Andrew, you know, how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? You know, it's something that King Charles has asked many times. So, I mean, he can do this introduction role and promote businesses and stuff. But the Queen, you know, he was an envoy. That was his job, and he's just setting the clock back. And I think for him, it's just a case of, you know, I don't actually agree with Robert. I think the public, he wasn't found guilty, but he was found guilty in the court of public opinion because he paid off someone he'd never met for £12 million.
Yeah, but they do that in America all the time. People pay out. They try to avoid going to court. So, I mean, I'm not defending Prince Andrew, far from it, but I do think people should you can't stop him earning a living.
Well, I think you can. I mean,
well, then, for what? I mean, at the end of the day, he's not been found guilty or anything. He's already been stripped of his royal role. I don't see. I mean, someone's got to be allowed. You got to be allowed to earn a living if you're. It's a free world.
Not if you're actually using the very fact that he's there and getting those contacts and being involved with that scenario is because he's a royal. It's the only reason.
Yeah, but then you've got people like Zara Phillips and Peter Phillips. They do pretty much similar thing. They do business, and they're allowed to do that. They're not on the royal payroll. Andrew's not on the royal payroll. It's a moot point. But I mean, the end of the day, you know, unless he's doing something illegal, I can't see how anyone can stop him.
Yeah. I don't think we can stop it. But Duncan, I think the more important question is, do you think that Prince Andrew and Fergie spent Valentine's Day together? Because they're divorced and they still live together.
Yeah, they have a very interesting relationship. Yeah. The answer to that is I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
I'm just disappointed I never spent Valentine's night with you, Kinsey. That's what I was
at Windsor Castle. You should have.
I was trying to reach you, but you were just, you know, beyond the castle walls like Rapunzel. It was terrible.
Okay, I'm feeling like a Gooseberry now.
Okay, so I'm going to skip the next story because I think seeing the sassiness of the two of you and the spice, I think we need to go directly.
We're the Spice Boys from now on, Kinsey. That's what we are.
Exactly. I think we need to go directly to As Ever, Meghan Markle's latest brand. Do both of you, are you as I mean, I'm getting whiplash from all of these different brands and rebrands and these new announcements and the almost launching something and not launching it officially. I do not understand. I was critical of her on a show in Australia, and all the comments from people saying I was jealous of her. I'm like, what the hell am I jealous of? I don't understand what. I think that this is incredibly embarrassing. She goes on Instagram, you know, and tries to justify every little failure. You know, clearly she reads the comment section because she's like, well, and then, you know, American Riviera Orchard, it was just, you know, I didn't want to have to make all my products from the area. girl, you can't afford to fight the trademark war. You know, like just be honest and upfront. You didn't get the trademark approved before you launched this. She hasn't got the trademark approved when it comes to As Ever. There is a photography company that's now pitching a fit over it. There is a clothing boutique out of New York City that shares the name that's pitching a fit about it. The coat of arms from Spain that looks completely plagiarized when it comes to Meghan's latest logo. This is a hot mess express. And to me, it's the perfect example of why Harry and Meghan could not function properly within the royal fold. There are rules, regulations, and protocols that everyone follows so that things run smoothly. And these two, specifically Meghan, because I think Prince Harry played along for almost 40 years, but Meghan just does not play by the rules, and it continuously gets her in trouble. And how is it not more recognized by her base that continues to defend her? Robert, I'll go with you. I saw you nod.
Kinsey's raspberry jam. I think that's probably should go with that. But look, I think that they thought they could just reinvent the wheel when they went on their own, off on their own. They thought they had all the answers because they thought they were the star couple and that nobody had been a star couple before. Well, both Duncan and I are long enough in the tooth to have seen these stars rise and fall in the past, and they were just at the time when they decided to hop it to that they were in the rise. Now, they also thought they'd reinvent the wheel. They thought they could, utilize their royal brands and their royal name to make quite a shed load of money, a fistful of dollars. Well, actually, it's turned out that they haven't surrounded themselves with very smart people because they wouldn't have made the mistakes they've made. Either they are not listening to very smart people, or they're not really getting the best advice because really, they shouldn't be getting themselves into the mess they keep getting themselves into if they were bright enough to read the runes. The reality is, it does seem to me, to quote Mr. Arthur Edwards, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed.
I like the brightest crayons in the box, but that's more of a feminine saying. So I understand you coming with the tool references. Duncan, what's your reaction when you see, because I guess I think that a lot of us have been patiently waiting to see the launch of American Riviera Orchard, which we assumed would coincide with her Netflix series that launches in 2 weeks, for her to do a complete 180 and go, by the way, new brand name. How do you process that?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, Kingsley, what really worries me about this is what Meghan is actually trying to achieve. I mean, Prince Harry, there is nobody who's been more vocal than Prince Harry about his desire for privacy, to not be photographed, to not have his children photographed, to not live in a place like LA, where, no offense, but it's about the cult of celebrity. It's the center of the world's celebrity culture.
I am offended, but I'm just kidding. Keep going.
and yet Meghan's doing this because she wants to promote a brand. It's a dog's breakfast because, what happened to her 40/40.
Yes.
Launch. What? There's all these projects. What happened to her project where she was going to have her books animated? It's all going wrong for her, and you wonder how long she can keep it up before basically the door's shut on her face, and then she's stuck with a husband who doesn't want any publicity. It's absolute madness.
How uncomfortable. Yeah, Robert, to Duncan's point, these two have been so fiercely protective of their children, and I've defended them and defended them and defended them over this. Children are off limits. They moved out of the country. If you don't want us to see or know about your children, I completely respect that. Meghan has a crisis pivot in her brand and throws up an image of Lily on her website. That feels totally vulgar to me. It feels desperate to me. Obviously, this brand wasn't ready to go because it's just a landing page that collects email addresses, which is what AmericanRivierAorchard.com has been for almost 12 months now. How do you respond to we don't release pictures of our children on their birthdays or on the holidays? We don't want you to see them unless Netflix is giving us a ridiculous amount of money and we'll show them to you in our reality show. But then she throws a picture of Lily up that she knows is going to be what everybody talks about when she's trying to distract from the fact that she's screwed up again. So she has to launch this new name.
Kinsey,
I mean,
I interject. Sorry, Robert. There's a reason for this.
Yeah.
Meghan grew up wishing she could be famous. Prince Harry grew up wishing he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, he doesn't want to expose his kids to this attention. He doesn't want to use his children and their royal connections to promote some brand. And, you know, this is a real sign of potential friction. I don't know the situation with their marriage, but what I do know is the last few weeks have really shown the lengths that Meghan's prepared to go to try and be a success. But I do apologise for interjecting. So, Jobbo.
no, I thought that was a really, really important point about the point that she wanted to be famous and he didn't want it. But the reality is, as Kinsey said at the start of all this, it's not their children's fault. And the one thing that needs protecting is their children. But it does seem that they need protecting for their mother, because the reality here is, you know, it's a blatant use of the child's image. That child probably had no say in it whatsoever. And I think it's cynical. That's my view on it.
Yeah, because we're also seeing her put them on Instagram, not fully, you know, not their full faces, but now she's utilizing.
Yeah, but that's just a big tease, isn't it, for the newspaper?
Is.
And I just don't think it's acceptable for those children, because it's not fair. It's not, they haven't got a choice in all this. And when in 10 years, when they're 18 or something, they may look back at that and say, Mum, that wasn't acceptable. And what they're going to do, sue their own mother? It isn't acceptable. And in fact, there's rules that the British press, the American press, everyone else sticks by when it comes to children. But it does seem that unless, you know, the actual parents can do what they want, and I just think it sucks. Actually, I don't think it's a good move, and as Duncan quite rightly said, you know, we don't know. We're not flies on the wall in their marriage, but I would have thought that this is a point of friction. Yeah.
I agree, because every time a picture or post goes out of the children, no matter how vague it is, you know, Meghan dedicating a post to her deceased dog and the children's voices in the background, it's Princess Lilibet, Prince Archie splashed all over the headlines. And these are kids that go to regular school in Santa Barbara, California. And I doubt that they're called Prince Archie or Princess Lilibet.
Well, let's hope they're not, because that was
Yeah.
another waste of time. If you didn't want to be in part of this whole system, what was the point of that? You know, because it's only going to add, as you know, the woman who did it correctly was Princess Royal, who didn't take any title for her children, Zara Phillips and Peter Phillips. Not even her husband wasn't even made a lord or whatever, because she didn't want all that, because she wanted them to be raised as not, they're never going to be normal kids in that respect. They're great, you know, they're great, their grandfather's the king. But the point of it is, if you're going to live in a normal environment, you don't want prince and princess or lord or ladyship in front of your name, because it just comes back to give you you get a hard time at school. You know, that's the reality.
It is, and I think that was going to be my point. Now, Duncan, I recently, within the last few hours, had an outlet reach out to me and say, why is it that we always pick on Meghan? You know, why are we never supportive of her projects, or not? You know, we don't give her a chance. I don't think it has anything to do with Meghan. I think it has to do with, you know, the loss of, I think there was a loss of trust when she sat down with Oprah Winfrey. You know, the fact that there were so many receipts when it came to tearing into some of her claims that were clearly not true, that you start to lose trust in people if there are ways to prove what they said were not accurate and seem mean-spirited in the accusations. I also think that they hit us immediately. I think that first impressions are really important, and Harry and Meghan, separate from the royal family, they hit us from such a negative standpoint that that's lingered. You know, you can't reintroduce yourself to the States and say, I'm all about joy. Like we watched you for years complaining about being a princess. It's hard to digest that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think when somebody says, why aren't we giving her a chance? It's not do you agree that it's not about her? It's missteps that have been made in a overall brand, brand that continues to struggle because it lacks an identity.
It also lacks credibility because it's based on too many different false starts. I mean, the reality is, Duncan was saying, they're demanding privacy, yet they want to be seen in public. They're demanding, they're telling people to fly, to save the planet, yet they fly private jets. These are all things that started off badly. Then they started attacking their family. They started attacking the royal family. That backfired. Initially, there was quite a lot of support for them, over race and over the mental health issues, which is understandable, and there should be some sympathy. But then that began to unravel. The secret marriage that they're supposed to have had before they married, that unraveled when the Archbishop of Canterbury, the most holy man in the land, outed them as that was nonsense. So when things start to unravel like this, any form of credibility, any sort of credit you've had in the bank, it just dissipates, because the reality is people just don't believe a word you say anymore, and eventually, if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, please give me privacy, we've got another series on Netflix telling us what we think of our family," people are going to say, "We're tired of this. Have you got anything decent or honourable or worthy to say?" And it does seem to me the answer is no.
We're just gonna freeze some ice with flowers in it. We've run out of the good thing. We've run out of things to say. Duncan, what's your reaction to Robert?
No, I agree with him, and I think if anything, he's being generous, because he hasn't even mentioned the fact that she's completely blanked and blackballed her own family apart from her mother. And I mean, it's not rocket science. If you want to be somebody who's going to speak openly and as a celebrity about the importance of relationships and the importance of the family and the importance of nice tubs of jam, you can't do that at the same time that you're ignoring your father with a heart condition.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's just so inconsistent that all it looks like is total falsehood. And I don't. I know what Harry would want. He would not want to be living in LA. He would not want that celebrity lifestyle. He hated it. He told us hundreds of times how much he hated the royal baggage. But that royal baggage, like using your princess daughter to build your brand, is at loggerheads with Harry. It's like two magnets that are turned the wrong way around.
I feel so sorry for him when I see the stories about him surrounded by Meghan and her friends, because that's just not his scene. Harry around 50 to 70-year-old, and there's no problem with 50 to 70-year-old women. That's my scene. But what does he have in common with Oprah Winfrey and I can't remember, Victoria Jackson, maybe the makeup entrepreneur? What does he have in common with all of these self-made women that are in this room that Meghan has chased so aggressively? Gayle King. He has nothing in common with these people. I mean, what a miserable existence to have to sit around and listen to these women talk about Weight Watchers or whatever it is that Oprah's talking about, whatever it is Oprah's shilling today. I just don't think, I think about Prince Harry hunting and all the young guy who just used to be chasing the good time is now just stuck in this very unappealing space.
Absolutely brilliantly put, actually, because Robert and we covered Harry when he was a teenager, and this guy at his best when he was sat with an African AIDS orphan child on his knee. And he's saying, we've got to make a difference to this child. Yeah. It had integrity. It had authenticity. And it's lost. I know that the Invictus Games, you can argue that's a triumph for Harry, and it is to some extent. But Harry is what makes Harry happy.
It's so much more than that, isn't it? I mean, Duncan and I we come. I remember chatting to him, and Duncan did the same. And you know, he always had a point. And sometimes he'd have a pop at us, and we'd have a pop back. But he was a good guy, I think, and I think he did actually really care. He did want to make a difference. He set up said to Bali, you know, forget me not after his mum, and he did a lot of really good work, I thought. And I actually think it's been totally wasted, really because of a desire by the partner that he eventually married. Um, to chase money. And the fact is that, you know, he was a pretty wealthy guy anyway, Harry. It's all about money, this, and I mean that's sad in my opinion, because you see, both of them together, if they'd stuck around and showed instead of, I don't know what really went on, but maybe there was a bit of jealousy involved with William and Kate and all sorts of silly things that went on, feeling that they were the star couple and not getting enough credit for it. If they'd stuck around, I think they could have done a hell of a lot of good, actually, in terms of the Commonwealth, in terms of the royal family, and certainly supporting his father at a time when he needs him. I mean, I was
Yes.
at a reception today, 400 people there, and you got the Duke of Gloucester coming out with the Duchess of Gloucester. You know, these people are pretty old now, you know, and Harry would have injected a bit of energy and supported his brother and his sister-in-law as well, in what is a team event, the royal family. I think that, frankly, Meghan didn't get it. I think
Mm.
she didn't see that you know, that she was just part of a whole team event, and that the king was the leader, and it was this belief in being a star and being the main event that seemed to set them to lose track of what they were really about. And I do believe that the big failing in all of this is that instead of doing great things and great deeds for the world and making a real difference, they've just been chasing the brand and the money that goes with the brand, and really, you know, did they really need to do that? I don't think so.
Yeah, it is. I think that Meghan saw their popularity when they were in the royal family and thought that it was forever, not realizing that actions have consequences and bad behavior has consequences. And if you behave badly or disrespect an institution that is, you know, beloved all over the world, people will lose interest in you, and they will decide that
The
you're
king
not.
needs him. I mean, he would have been so needed, Harry, at the moment. He was one of the two boys, actually, out of the two sons. He got on best with Harry, and I think it must be a real pain as a dad myself to have, you know, to lose that sort of relationship with your son at a time when you really need your family close. It must be terrible, and I do feel for the king, actually. Yeah.
Duncan, do you have anything to say before I wrap up?
I feel like we might have pulled both your ears off and shouted down them, Kinsey. So I apologise for that.
I love it.
But we do remember what Harry was like. We were there when Harry hadn't met Meghan, and what has happened.
Duncan didn't have a beard. Duncan didn't have a beard. It wasn't grey.
Yes, yes, Harry and Meghan have made me grow a beard out of frustration, but no, I mean, we know what makes Harry tick. He let that slip in his autobiography, which was very honest, and it just doesn't add up with the life he's chosen. It's anyone can see that.
That's absolutely right, Duncan. Absolutely right. And he must be, as Kinsey said earlier, this whole idea of surrounding themselves by these, you know, all these Oprahs and Claire and all these people, they're talking the sort of gibberish that they can tend to talk. It must be driving him nuts. I mean, you know, he hasn't even got the sort of hangers on like Corden there anymore. This is really strange, really, in my opinion. That I don't really know what he's doing with himself, and we know that guy, as a young man, was a very, very active. He was a good officer in the British Army. He was somebody who cared about the Great Britain PLC. He cared about serving the Queen and country. He was brave. He was courageous as a soldier, and he served his country well. And not only that, when he came out, he had such passion for subjects. You know.
He was absolutely adored by the British public.
Yeah.
You know,
He really was. He was the number one, really, more than anybody. And actually, you know, if you put him, he would often come on a par with the late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Now that's not the case anymore because he's sold out, and unfortunately, that is how a lot of people see it. And even when, and then you do those cheap things like in New York where they said they were being chased. You know, and you go to New York, they were furious about that because you can't, you know what the traffic's like in New York, it doesn't go that fast. You're simply not going to be chased. And so, you know, there's things that have gone on, and I don't know what planet they're on in terms of their PR sometimes, but I do hope, and I hope one day that the guy can, you know, find some peace, because both Duncan and I know that he deep down there, he's a good man, he's a nice guy, he's caring, he may not be the smartest guy in the world, but he does have a kind heart. And I just feel at the moment, all this chasing of money is not doing anybody any good.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and the idea that, to Duncan's point, this is Meghan's dream. This is Meghan's pursuit. I've been told that Harry is barely featured in this Netflix series that comes out March 4th. Our only interest in Meghan is in association with who she married. So, you know, that to me, I can't believe a higher power didn't say, let's cut a few more pieces of Harry in there. Although clearly Netflix didn't have that much control, or Harry would have been more involved in the Polo series. But you know,
maybe he doesn't want to though, Kinsey. Maybe he just doesn't want to do.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the most pertinent point to come out of this, and is really the whole chat. It's been Duncan's point where he said that, you know, she was born wanting to be famous. He was born not wanting to be famous, and that what was already in that position. So I really think that that's really about sums it all up as to where they are now. Where that leaves them as a couple, as a married couple, you know, God only knows.
Yeah, unless you're Vanity Fair, and then you are literally reporting that Meghan was shopping a post-divorce book, and we'll have to watch this space. Is I guess the
Vanity Fair. I thought that was a book by George Eliot. Oh no, I see. I see.
Vanity Fair reporting that somebody from Meghan's team shopping a post-divorce Prince Harry book.
Wow, they've got some great sources, haven't they?
And Harry and Meghan not reacting to that. So I thought that was these two very litigious people that love to slap the hands of journalists that don't say things that they like. All right. Well, if you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. What a lively conversation we just had with Robert Jobson from his car. I enjoyed every second of it.
and Duncan as well. He's got that old clock in the background. He looks like he's running an antique shop now.
Oh my God. I think it's beautiful, Duncan. I think you look gorgeous. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. This was so much fun. And I look forward to seeing the both of you again very soon.
Thanks, Kinsey.
Bye.